Why do millions tour the house since 1960? Why is the mother completely erased? The cultural narrative isolates the diary. It ignores the primary strategist. Annual museum attendance currently exceeds 1 million. This figure surpasses the entire pre-war Jewish population of the Netherlands. Crowds tour. Cameras flash. 761 Days in Hiding became a global franchise. The logistical anchor remains completely obscured. Global tourism idolizes a physical building. She starved. The actual ration manager died in total anonymity. Edith divided crumbs. She sustained them. Rights vanished. The state categorized her as disposable, seized her remaining assets, and ensured she died at 44. 70 translation languages. Global recognition started in 1947 when Otto Frank published the records saved by Miep Gies. She handed the papers directly to Otto upon his arrival in Amsterdam. The loose diary sheets rustled. He accepted them silently. Otto had traveled over 1,000 kilometers from Auschwitz to the Netherlands. He returned on June 3, 1945. He still searched for his daughters. Frontline logistics failed to secure the camps in time. Exactly 21 days separated Edith's death from the arrival of Soviet troops at Auschwitz. The Red Army secured the perimeter on January 27, 1945. By then, guards had moved the remaining family members to Bergen-Belsen. Margot died there in February 1945. Anne perished from typhus in the same month. British forces arrived in April. 2 months too late. Otto learned of their deaths in July. The chronological gap between troop movements and physical survival defined the outcome. He focused on the preserved pages. The first edition appeared in 1947. The final count of translation languages reached 70. How did Josef Mengele run medical selections? The doctor toured the barracks. He sent the weakest to execution. He stood at the entrance. He pointed his thumb. Left meant gas chambers. He controlled the outcome. Otto Frank survived until liberation. In Birkenau, women faced physiology. Survival meant passing daily medical inspections. The SS provided under 1,000 calories. Winter hit hard. Temperatures dropped to -40 degrees Celsius. Pipes froze solid. There was no running water. Edith Frank crouched outside. Rosa de Winter knelt nearby. They scraped snow from frozen dirt. They rubbed ice on their skin. Washing prevented typhus infections. Epidemics spread through lice. By late December, Edith collapsed. Starvation consumed her reserves. Muscle tissue wasted away. Fever burned. Rosa carried her to quarantine. The sick block smelled of decay. Entering meant risking Mengele. Edith refused food. She stopped speaking. Her weight dropped. Organ failure began. On January 6, 1945, her lungs finally stopped drawing air inside the infectious barracks. Edith Frank and 2 other inmates dig under the quarantine barracks wall with bare hands. She had systematically transferred her daily rations to her daughters. This severe caloric deficit led directly to the infectious ward. Survival logistics started weeks earlier on the Auschwitz-Birkenau unloading ramp. SS medical personnel visually assessed the incoming train payload. 1,019 Jews disembarked. Doctors routed 350 individuals straight to the gas chambers. The sorting protocol concluded in hours. Out of the entire manifest, only 45 men and 82 women survived the war. Camp regulations mandated strict isolation when Margot and Anne contracted scabies. Guards severed all official contact. Edith bypassed the quarantine perimeter. Frozen earth compacted under her fingernails. She breached the foundation. Through a narrow trench dug under the wooden wall, she passed smuggled bread to her children. Camp administration transferred Margot and Anne to Bergen-Belsen in October 1944. Who initiated the operational capture at Prinsengracht 263? On August 4, 1944, Austrian SS officer Karl Zilberbauer entered the building. The arrest immediately triggered a strict logistical sequence, culminating on September 3, 1944. Over 1,000 individuals stood locked inside the sealed freight wagons. One solitary barrel replaced basic sanitary facilities for the entire crowded carriage. This specific transport became the final train ever dispatched from Westerbork directly to Auschwitz. Westerbork was the central transit hub for the deportation of over 100,000 Dutch Jews. The bureaucratic procedure began when Zilberbauer overturned wooden drawers during the initial facility raid. He scattered personal notebooks across the floor while seizing all remaining material assets. Police officers processed the captured occupants through regional headquarters before formally transferring them into the established transit infrastructure. Prisoners faced mandatory manual labor dismantling old batteries before the camp administration finalized the schedule for their eastern relocation. Gestapo protocols dictated minimal resource allocation for the prisoners during the impending journey. The transport network required 3 complete days to move the loaded carriages across the European continent. The platform doors opened. What does total isolation look like inside a European capital? 761 days. Long before Auschwitz, Edith Frank faced severe psychological siege. Any sound meant death. Complete silence fell. Downstairs, warehouse operations continued. In 1940, Amsterdam held approximately 800,000 residents. The state deleted 8 individuals from this demographic registry. They existed off the grid. Miep Gies arrived with scheduled supply drops. She handed over the rations. She documented Edith's severe physical exhaustion. She observed her mental decline. Others discussed post-war restaurants. Edith expected nothing. Anne's diary recorded these daily structural frictions. Arguments escalated quickly. Anne noted the emotional distance. Yet she also documented Edith's defensive maneuvers. Otto Frank corroborated this baseline reality. Edith suffered quietly. Then came August 4th. After 2 years inside a sealed perimeter, the logistics network finally failed. Isolation broke. The siege ended. The Frank family dissolved into the concealed upper levels of an Amsterdam office building on the morning of July 6th. A single government document forced this transition into undocumented status. On July 5, 1942, Margot Frank received a mandatory conscription notice. This specific labor summons initiated a standard bureaucratic procedure for eventual deportation to the Westerbork transit facility. Otto Frank executed a pre-planned architectural concealment protocol at Prinsengracht 263. Heavy iron hinges swung a custom-built bookcase across the threshold. The wooden shelving unit clicked into place, severing 3 entire floors from the external environment. The Van Pels family, Herman, Auguste, and Peter, breached the perimeter 1 week later, followed by dentist Fritz Pfeffer in November. 8 undocumented individuals existed in total geographical isolation. Their continued survival depended entirely on a vulnerable logistics network of exactly 6 external helpers. These couriers smuggled essential caloric rations and medical supplies across the boundary. Internal operational security dictated severe acoustic discipline for all occupants. Utilizing the plumbing infrastructure, specifically the flush valve, remained strictly prohibited throughout daylight hours. Any mechanical vibration transferring through the wooden floorboards could alert exterior security patrols. Downstairs, the commercial warehouse staff unlocked the main entrance at exactly 8:30 in the morning. Why did families with capital remain in Europe until the borders closed? United States immigration quotas restricted entries to 27,000 German and Austrian citizens annually. Thousands remained trapped. 2 years prior to the summons, bureaucratic delays blocked legal escape routes. Otto and Edith filed paperwork for Cuban and American visas. They contacted Nathan Strauss for assistance. Officials delayed the documents. The quotas filled up. On May 10, 1940, German forces invaded the Netherlands. Luftwaffe bombers leveled Rotterdam. The Dutch military surrendered. Occupation authorities dismantled civil rights. State directives dismissed Jewish civil servants. Decrees transferred private businesses to new ownership. Rosa, Edith's mother, died in Amsterdam in January 1942. The state expanded its segregation. Orders banned Jewish residents from parks, transit, and cinemas. A new decree mandated the visible wear of a yellow Star of David. Authorities set an enforcement deadline for May 5th. The mandatory identification law officially took effect on April 29, 1942. 30,000 targeted arrests in one night. Gestapo took Walter. Before the badge decrees, the Netherlands appeared secure. The German government institutionalized terror. On November 9, 1938, stormtroopers executed Kristallnacht. Businesses collapsed, synagogues burned. Authorities detained nearly 30,000 men. Trains departed for Dachau, Buchenwald, and Sachsenhausen. Constructed in 1936 for political dissidents, Sachsenhausen expanded operations. Commanders adapted the camp for ethnic purges. Guards incarcerated Walter. He escaped later. Julius survived through his World War I service record. Both brothers fled to the United States. Options vanished. In March 1939, Rosa packed her remaining possessions and crossed the Dutch border into Amsterdam. Where did this psychological fracture originate? It stemmed from the total loss of a linguistic and geographical base upon crossing the border. This physical relocation to Amsterdam initiated a deep isolation for Edith. Roots were severed. Dutch syntax proved difficult. A distance of 400 kilometers separated her from her previous existence. The assimilation process stalled entirely. She sat at her desk, pen scraping against paper, drafting a message to a friend from her old neighborhood. The ink formed specific memories about the distinct scent of autumn in Frankfurt and the familiarity of Marbachweg. Integration failed. The geopolitical shift forced a citizen into a linguistic vacuum. She dated that specific correspondence 1937. How much time separated physiological collapse from the Soviet military arrival? Exactly 21 days. Edith Frank died in an Auschwitz barracks. Bare hands scraped against the frozen earth. The sound echoed in the dark. The state extermination process was precise. Starvation broke her body. The front line moved closer. Time ran out. Military rescue lagged behind biological reality. Look at the archival photograph. She sits in a garden. The date is 1934. She is 34 years old. The posture indicates stability. The environment implies peace. 10 years later, that world ceased to exist. It was erased. State policies targeted specific demographics. Borders locked shut. Mass deportations began across Europe. Bureaucratic removal accelerated rapidly. She died just before the first Ukrainian front breached the perimeter. Auschwitz fell on January 27, 1945. The chronological gap was minimal. The advancing military offensive reached the main camp gates. The operational delay proved fatal. 3 weeks. 300,000 civilians abandoned the territory of the Reich over 6 years, escaping a rapid legislative dismantling. This demographic group accounted for merely 0.8% of the total national population. Yet, these refugees constituted nearly 60% of the 522,000 Jewish citizens recorded in 1933. The structural displacement progressed through exact bureaucratic phases rather than spontaneous hatred. Civil service positions were terminated across all government departments. Commercial enterprises faced forced registration. Heavy ink stamps finalized the confiscation documents for targeted businesses. Simultaneously, the Dachau concentration camp opened in March 1933, exactly 60 days after the chancellor appointment. The Frank family relocated to Amsterdam to evade this administrative erasure. By September 1933, Otto established Opekta, an enterprise distributing pectin for food production. While the children attended local schools, primary focus remained on securing commercial viability abroad. Operations expanded steadily over the next 5 years. By 1938, Otto officially registered a new wholesale spice corporation named Pecticon in the Netherlands. Why did a marginal political group seize the state apparatus? American loans failed. This legislative dismantling required a prior trigger. The global financial architecture collapsed on October 24, 1929. The root cause traced back 10 years. The 1919 Treaty of Versailles demanded payments, 132 billion gold marks. The state lacked this capital. Germany paid using borrowed American dollars. The Dawes Plan initiated the flow. 25 billion gold marks crossed the ocean. The Weimar Republic depended on Wall Street. The New York Exchange crashed. Credit lines froze. American banks recalled their European loans. German industry stopped. Factories closed. 6 million workers lost their jobs by 1932. The macroeconomy failed. Poverty spread. Radicalization followed. By summer 1932, the streets changed. SA stormtroopers marched through Frankfurt. Battalions formed ranks. Army boots struck the cobblestones. The financial center of Europe echoed with military cadence. Men in brown shirts carried weapons openly. They sang about Jewish blood on knives. Not a metaphor, a concrete political program. Democracy dissolved. Voters wanted action. On January 30, 1933, Adolf Hitler officially received the appointment as Chancellor of Germany. In 1925, marriage registration did not document a refugee journey. Before the American market crash, this demographic stratum reached its peak economic integration. It formalized a financial merger. Two representatives of the German bourgeoisie consolidated assets. Otto Frank was a commercial operator, 12 years older. On May 8, 1925, the couple signed civil documents in Aachen. 4 days later, they held a ceremony in the local synagogue. The household relocated to Frankfurt am Main. During the Weimar era, this city was the primary financial node and center of the stock exchange. The Franks established residence in a newly constructed district. On February 16, 1926, Margot was born. The family constituted an economic unit. They matched the urban environment. They established a stable existence in a premium district. Yet this security was temporary. On June 12, 1929, their second daughter, Anna, arrived. This birth happened 4 months before global markets collapsed. Their financial stability peaked in 1929. Who were these future refugees before the state dismantled their legal rights? They owned heavy machinery enterprises within the German Empire. The Hollander capital originated directly from the industrial sector of Aachen during the early 20th century. This border city utilized extensive railway networks connecting directly to the massive Ruhr coalfields. Abraham and Rosa managed a facility supplying manufacturing components. Workers loaded steel parts onto freight carriages amidst a constant metallic hum and the sharp smell of factory grease. Edith arrived into this commercial environment on January 16, 1900. Their warehouses stocked zero consumer goods, holding only specialized industrial equipment required for regional production. After her 14-year-old sister Bettina died, Edith integrated directly into the family administration. She managed daily supply ledgers and coordinated equipment deliveries across the industrial grid. Decades later, bare hands dug into frozen earth.